Okay, I thought this would be a quick way to give you the answer instead of trying to type it out. So, question number 43 on the midterm. A broker for ABC Realty listed a home on Ash Street. Another agent at ABC has shown a buyer customer the listing on Ash. The buyer wants to make an offer. Which of the following is true under North Carolina license law? What do we know? It's the same firm. There's only one firm, ABC Realty. There's two brokers within that firm. So the temptation is to think dual agency, but don't forget, a buyer can call you on your yard sign and you could say, well, I don't want to do dual agency. You're going to remain an unrepresented buyer. So they could do this as dual agency. They could also do this as an unrepresented buyer, but it goes back to test taking skill. What do we know from the question? Don't read into it. If you were to assume dual agency just because it's one firm and two brokers, that would be reading too much into the question. They don't tell us dual agency specifically. All they say is one broker at ABC has the listing. Another broker at ABC has shown that listing to a buyer customer, and they are specific to say the word customer. They're particular about that. The word customer means not a client, right? If they say the word customer, there is not a client on that buyer side. The buyer has not signed a buyer agency agreement. And if they haven't signed a buyer agency agreement, then they can't do dual agency, right? So there's one clue. Shown a buyer customer the listing. What is true? Well, we don't know for sure. It says letter A, ABC Realty is a dual agent. We don't know. The question doesn't give us enough information to say that one. B, the broker is a dual agent. Again, we don't know anything about dual agency because they didn't give us enough info in the question. So it can't be those two. Let's skip to D because the answer is C. So D says the agent that showed the house to the buyer is a buyer's agent. Again, not enough information. They did not tell us that. Therefore, it would be a mistake to assume it, right? So that leaves us with the answer C, which I'm sure you've already looked up. Confidential information shared by the buyer with the second agent obligates the agent to disclose that confidential information with the listing broker, because that buyer might very well like the agent they're working with. The agent's probably friendly to them, and it might even be tempting for that buyer to confide in that agent, but it would be a mistake if that agent let the buyer do that without giving them fair warning. As a broker, that second agent who's shown the listing to them should say, wait a minute, you have not hired me yet. I'm not your buyer's agent. We're not doing dual agency. Therefore, by default, I'm still a sub-agent to the seller, right? And if they're a sub-agent to the seller, then whatever that buyer says to them has to be told to the seller through the listing agent. Does that help? Let me know if that's still a little bit confusing, but this is the nitty-gritty of these agency questions. So you just really have to analyze that test question and that's exactly what I mean by not reading too much into it, right? Just because it's the same firm and two brokers within that firm does not mean necessarily that it's dual agency happening here, because everybody would have to agree to enter into dual agency, and they didn't tell us that is what happened. And then the other thing is the difference between the word customer and client. Big red flag, big hint. If you see the word customer, that means somebody, the buyer in this case, has not hired the agent as a buyer agent. And in order to be a dual agent, they'd have to hire him as a buyer agent first, right? Okay, so there you go. Hope that helps.